She is here, the new Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette. So we're gonna swatch it, compare it with other palettes from Natasha Denona, and we're gonna do 3 looks. So let's get started. I purchased my palette from Sephora, but now it's available at Natasha Denona as well. I think it was released a little early, and I think Ulta also has it. For Natasha Denona website, I do have a 15% off code. It is Tania Wells, and I'll put it on the screen or link it down below. But this is the new palette. The packaging is beautiful. It's a very similar to the I Need a Nude. I have it right here. So this is the I Need a Nude packaging, and this is the I Need a Warm. I love this packaging. I think it is the coolest that Natasha Denona has done. So let's look up close. This is the packaging. And just overall, it's really cool. You still have these little holes at the end so you can rearrange the palette and mix and match. Here is how the palette looks inside. It looks less warm than I expected. I think it's more of a neutral warm. And I like that. I don't like too orangey looks, but overall I like a neutral warm eye look. That's probably my go-to color story. I have not swatched this at all, so we're gonna do it together. Here are all the swatches, and I really like the color story. Like I mentioned before, it doesn't look super warm, but it definitely is leaning more to that neutral warm rather than neutral cool, which I personally really enjoy. There are a couple different textures, and overall the shimmers are quite pigmented. I don't see any topper shimmers, which I personally really like that Natasha Denona formula. So it seems like these are more of those classic metallic shades. Definitely some beautiful shades, but I'm already missing more of those kind of topper shades. The first color I swatched is the color Soft Spot, and that one is incredible. It swatches really well. I like the tone of it. So I'm pretty sure that one is a new formula. And also Flashover seems to be more of that cream to powder maybe. I'm looking on the Natasha Denona website, and the color Flashover, it is a slip cream matte medium clay brown. So I don't know if that one's a new formula, but it definitely feels different. And then the Soft Spot, which is the one that I felt and thought it was incredible. It just says here CM, a matte medium warm caramel, but it definitely feels different than the other mattes. So, oh, homie, it's a metallic gloss. Okay, this one right here. To me, that's like pretty metallic straight up. Doesn't feel like it's a gloss or a topper or anything like that. It just seems to be just a bright metallic. I am going to go ahead and do 3 different looks with this palette, and then we're going to do comparison and just talking about the formula a little bit more at the end. Starting off, first look with the color Mellow. This is a pretty creamy peachy shade. I do like the tone of it. It's warm without being too warm, and I really like it. It was nice in the crease, and I was trying to build up the color to see how much pigment we are getting, and we're definitely getting some color. Now the color Soft Spot is incredible. You can see here that it has a lot of pigment, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be so hard to blend out just because there's so much color there, but it blended seamlessly. I barely had to do any work, and I tried not to cut that portion just so you can see how fast and easy it was to blend that color out. I adore this color so much. Took it on the lower lash line as well just to smudge it out. Now I'm taking the color Pep, I think that's how you say it, and I'm just using that on my lash line, build a little bit of depth, kind of like a liner, a really smudged out liner. So I'm using a really soft blending brush, and then I'm going back over it with my crease blending brush. This has some leftover brown on it, but I like mixing the brushes. I think it gives me a smoother and more blurred out lash line. And now I'm taking the color Mellow, and this is how I like to use it to kind of buff out the other colors. I'm trying here to decide which color I should use, and I decided on Snug, and it is a really pretty kind of peachy shade. Nothing crazy. It's it's creamy, it's pigmented, but it doesn't have a ton of sparkles through it. It's just a nice smooth shimmer. And then I am taking the color Elm in my inner corner just to brighten it up. Also taking the color Fancy and putting it in the center of my eyelid. I just wanted a little bit more texture, different colors, and all three of these don't have a ton of actual sparkles in them. They're just a really nice shimmer creamy formula. I'm taking Soft Spot again, just blending it out, building that brown color up a little bit. I didn't add a ton of product to this, so I'm being a little bit more free to where I'm buffing the product out. I'm also building up the color Pep a little bit more. I probably lost a little bit of that depth when I went with the shimmers on top. So just slowly building the products up. And here it is with mascara. The colors are nice. It's a very daily friendly eye look. Moving on to the second look, I wanted this to be a little bit more on the warmer side. So I'm taking Ripe in my crease and building this up. I wanted to see how much pigment we're getting, and you can definitely build the color up. It becomes quite peachy on the eyelids, and I really like it. I thought it was a good base. Then I'm taking Mellow, again blending the other shade out. I just like to do this with any colors that I'm using. I'll use a lighter one and a darker one and blending them out. Now this color right here, it's called Phenomena, and it is a duochrome. It's actually quite intense, but very, very pretty. I wasn't expecting to like this one, but because it's pulling a little bit of pink, as you can see there, it's like a peachy pink rather than an orange shade. I liked it more than I thought I would. So I'm just blending this out, putting it all over the lid, but focusing it in the center. And I wanted to blend out that outer corner, so I'm taking the color Fervor. I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce these so bad. Obviously, English is not my first language, so I'm struggling a little bit here. I have no idea what these mean, by the way. But I'm taking that color. It has more warmth in it, and I'm putting it in the inner corner, outer corner, a little bit of a soft halo. And I thought it would kind of show how warm we can take this palette. And I really like it. It blended in nice. Again, all of these browns blend in so easily. I'm taking the color Flashover and building that outer edge closer to the lash line this time. Inner corner, I'm also going to take it on the lower lash line, and I'm taking a smaller, more precise blending brush because I want to be precise where I add this color. It has more depth to it, so I want to control it a little bit more. So I'm slowly building that shade. You see me going softly with more color until I'm happy with the result. I'm using a brush this time for that duochrome shade and putting it in on the lower lash line. I found it works better with my fingers, so I just went back to the fingers. Taking the color Fancy, it's a really pretty kind of pinky light shade to brighten up the inner corner. And here I'm trying to decide if I want to add another shade. I took the shade Push and put it in the center, and I liked it. Initially, I was like, oh no, you ruined that duochrome, but it kind of grew on me, and I thought it looked pretty. Just took away from that duochrome shade. So if you want to focus on the duochrome, don't put something on top of that shade. Just some mascara, and that's it. I'm trying to not put fake lashes, not put liners or anything, so that way you can really see the actual colors. And here are the two looks side by side. Starting off with the third look, the palette closed on me, how dare it. Going back to Mellow, it's a good basic color. I'm putting this pretty much all over the lid and on the lower lash line as well. I'm taking the color Vim, and this is a really pretty shade. It's a little bit more neutral brown with a tiny bit of pink in it, but it's still not cool tone. I really like this color. It wasn't as easy to blend out as Soft Spot, that first nice brown that we used, but I like the tone of this one even more, and I'm slowly building this out. I'm again going back and forth with a smaller blending brush and then a fluffier one with no product in it, just to blend it out, and also taking it on the lower lash line. And again, all I'm doing is building the color slowly. Taking the color Pep, this is the darkest brown that we have, and I want to build some depth. So I'm going on the lash line with this, and I'm not being super careful. I'm kind of just putting the color there because I knew I was going to come with this color. Now, I cannot pronounce this. It is the Dynamism, I don't know, this color. And I thought it would be a taupey color, but it has actually quite a lot of gold in it. So it's a very interesting and unique color. This is probably one of my favorite colors. I'm taking it on the lower lash line. It's such a beautiful, unique shade. Don't you guys think? I love it. But I am taking Homey, and this is a really pretty kind of brighter shade. It has some sparkles through it. It did pick up with a brush, but with my finger is so much better and easier. And I'm slowly building this color up. I'm trying to tap it so we won't overtake the other shade that's so pretty. I just wanted some brightness and to kind of play with this color as well. And I ended up really, really liking it. And you'll see me here going back into that color that I can't pronounce, Dynamism. Okay. And building that up. Okay, I'm taking here the color Hanker, and I'm trying to build it up a little bit just to play with it, and it was fine. I gave a little bit of depth to the eye look, but I think that color would be pretty just all over by itself, a one and done kind of shade. It's pretty, has some green in it almost. It's like a brown with gold, so it makes it look a little bit of green. So I'm just kind of cleaning up the look. I'm going with the lighter shades in my inner corner to brighten that up. I'm keep going back into mellow and ripe and soft spot and Vim and Pep to just slowly build up the colors that I lost. And here it is with the mascara, and I thought it looked really cool in the mirror when I went outside. It's a cool overall look. Those are the 3 looks that I came up with, and I try to make them as different as possible. A more wearable everyday one, more warmer one, and more maybe a little bit smokier. I thought maybe this would turn maybe a little bit more neutral than it did, but that shade Dynamises has quite a lot of gold shift in it. I thought maybe this would put a little bit more maybe taupey, but that's okay. Those are the 3 looks. What do you guys think? I will tell you right away, I do love the palette. I like the tones. They are definitely warmer. I think they pull warmer on the skin than they look in the palette. Even some of the browns pulled warmer, like Fervor. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but this one right here is definitely warm. Soft Spot was probably my favorite out of all of the colors. The formula was quite pigmented, and initially when I put it on, I was like, oh wow, that's not gonna blend out, but it blended out seamlessly. This is an incredible formula. I think it's new, but I don't know. Vim, this one right here in the middle, maybe the color is my favorite out of all of them because it is a brown, but more like a taupey brown. As you can see right here, it's not too warm. It's not cool tone either. So that is probably my favorite brown. Did it blend as well as the Soft Spot? No. The Soft Spot, the formula, there's something unique about that one. But the color is definitely my favorite. Also, you have Pep right here. This one is just a neutral brown. So there's definitely more neutral and warm matte shades that you can kind of play around with. And I think because of that, the palette doesn't have to be extremely warm. Obviously, when I use this duochrome right here, it's obviously very like orangey warm shade. It has some red in it, it has some yellow in it, you can see there, even has some pink in it. I thought the color is quite interesting. I usually don't like these kinds of colors, not the duochrome, but the more orangey shades. But this one for a fun night out, I could see myself wearing it. Every time I put a more duochrome shade, I want to leave it alone, like let it do its thing. But for the sake of the video, I wanted to combine some other shades just so I can test out all the shades. But usually when you have these beautiful duochromes, maybe just let them be. Like even this one right here, I don't think that's very duochromy though. I think they say it is, but this is just more sparkly. I like when they're just by themselves. But Homey right here that I combined these two. This shade is really nice. You can pat it a little softer, and I feel like that gives more of that kind of sparkly topper fake, not fully, but instead of swiping it, that's gonna give you a ton of pigment. If you kind of pat it, that right there is just gonna give you more of a softer look, just a little bit of sparkle throughout. That's the shade that I used right here in the inner part. So I like using it that way. So I personally love the browns. I think every single brown here was really, really nice. I wish there was just one more deeper shade, maybe a little deeper than this. I feel like this one could have been swapped for a deeper one, but anyway. And my other complaint is the Elm and Fancy. Those two, I feel like they're very, very similar, and we could have used maybe a different color. Like, we don't need those two. I know one's more golden, one's more pink, but I personally don't think that both of these were needed. It's just very bright, so you can't tell. But yeah, one is a little bit more golden, one is a little bit more pink. I feel like NATASHA DENONA does this a lot, gives you so many very similar colors. So that's my one complaint. I wish that maybe give us a topper. Like, it can be a really light but topper shade. The color Hanker, I did not get to play with it a lot, but it's beautiful. It looks to me that maybe it has just the tiniest bit of a green in it. It's very, very little. It's definitely a brown gold, but yeah, I think that that's really beautiful. That would be pretty kind of all over the lid. The color Push is another one that I didn't get to play with it much. I put it a little bit on, but I feel like I don't have a lot of thoughts on it just because I didn't get to play with it much. It seems like it's a warmer, kind of peachy shade that has gold and silver sparkles through it. That looks actually like a really pretty color. Maybe I should have put that all over one of the lids. But overall, I think the quality is really great. I didn't have one dud. I think all of them worked incredible, but definitely the standouts for me is Soft Spot. I really like this one right here, Homey, and then Dynamism. I'm probably butchering that, but I think those three are my favorite shade from the whole palette. Now let's compare it to I Need a Nude. This is much, much more cool tone. Like, this is not necessarily nude to me. It's just cooler tone. Here are the palettes side by side, and you can definitely see a huge difference between the I Need a Nude and the warm one. To me, the nude one is more of a nude cool tone in my opinion, and then obviously the warm one pulls much, much warmer. I don't really think there's one shade that could be similar. Maybe Muse. Let's take Muse and then Homey. These are the two shades that maybe look the most alike, which is this one right here and then this right there. Here are the shades side by side. I'm holding it back from the camera and the lights, so hopefully you can tell a difference, but you can see that the I Need a Nude one is more pinky, almost cool tone, and then the Homey from the warm one has more warmth in it. I will say I like the texture of this one better. It has a little bit more sparkle and just a little bit more unique of a shade in my opinion. Let's look now at the gold palette. I absolutely love this palette so much. I love the tones of brown in it. Here are the palettes side by side, and as you can see, the golden palette isn't necessarily super warm. It does have gold in it, but the browns are more neutral than in the one I Need a Warm palette. So even these are very, very different. There's definitely shades in here that are similar to the warm ones, like some of the browns, but even so, you can see that they're pulling more peachy. This pulls a little bit more neutral. For example, this shade Flesh, it's more pinky rather than peachy. I swatched them right here. This one is from the gold palette, and this one is from I Need a warm palette, and this is more peachy. You can tell that this has maybe a little bit more pink in it rather than warmth in it. One more swatch, Nubia from the gold palette, and again, the Homey. Yeah, completely different. I don't know how much you're going to be able to tell, but down here is the warm palette and up here is the palette gold. The colors are so shiny that the lights are just washing it out. But yeah, I don't see any actual dupes in any of these palettes so far. We can look at the Glam palette, but this is like, no. This is so warm. There's literally nothing similar about these two, so I'm not even gonna waste my time there. We do have the bronze palette, which I feel like maybe has some similar tones. Let me try not to drop these, but okay, I feel like the browns are the most similar in these two palettes. Obviously, the bronze palette has a lot more depth in it. You can see this one's more kind of everyday wearable, but some of the warmth that comes in here, not even that much. None of these are really similar, but if I'm looking at the palette and the overall color story, I think the bronze is similar to I Need a Warm, just more bronzy, more depth, and warmer. Now let's look at the Biba palette, compare these two side by side. I got quite a few questions to compare these two, so let's do that. Okay, I feel like these two are probably the most similar so far. Obviously, Biba has some warm, some cool tones, some neutrals, but the warmer ones do seem to be at least similar to the I Need a Warm palette. So I'm gonna do a couple of swatches. I'm gonna take Freck from Biba right there, and then Soft Spot. Freck and Soft Spot. Here is the Biba palette Freck and Soft Spot from the I Need a Warm palette, and you can see that this one is a little bit more cool tone or more neutral than the Freck from Biba. I'm gonna take the Seed from Biba and then the Pep, which is the darkest brown from the new one. That's Biba. That's the new one. I think the new palette seems to be a little bit more on the cooler side, neutral side, than the Biba. I'm just making a big old mess. There is this warm color right here from the warm one, and then I'm gonna take Praline, which I think they're gonna be very different. Yeah. Praline is a beautiful shade, but it's very unique. It's kind of mustardy, so they're not similar. Last few shades I want to swatch are the shimmer shades. These are from Biba. And then I'm going to swatch a few of the ones from the new palette. These are the Biba 2 shimmers, lighter ones. And then these are the ones from I Need a Warm palette. I get confused. Not exactly the same, but they're similar, you know? They're similar. Even though Biba is the most similar to this one, I don't think they're dupes. Obviously, this one has colors that the Biba doesn't, and Biba has those cooler tones, those grays. So they're not the same, but I would say out of everything, I feel like those are the most similar ones. Which one do I prefer? Because I feel like I'm going to get so many questions. I'm leaning towards Biba just because I have a more cohesive palette. I have some cool tones in there. I really have a nice dark color right there. So I feel like I'm leaning towards that. The only issue with the Biba that I've had from the beginning is that I need more shimmers. I need more sparkles. I need more toppers and things like that. And this is not giving that to me. Whereas this one definitely has more shimmers and things like that I can kind of play with. So I think they're different. It's hard to compare them, and it really depends on your personal preference. I think after swatching this palette and playing with it, it's more intense than it looks when I first opened it up. I opened it up and I thought, wow, this is very kind of neutral. But the more I played with it, it definitely has warmth in it. Even the shades that in the pan, they looked more almost cool tone, like neutral cool tone. They end up having some gold in it that make it a little warmer. If I personally had to pick between the I Need a Nude palette and I Need a Warm one, I would pick I Need a Warm one just because I don't like oranges or way too warm, but I do prefer a little bit of warmth in my eye looks. I think it's more flattering. So I think I would pick this one over the I Need a Nude one for what I like. But out of the gold one and this new one, I don't know. I'm leaning towards the gold one because it's a little bit more neutral. Some of the browns are a little bit more neutral. I personally love this palette so much. I don't love like some of the golds in here, and I do like that it has some toppers as well. I don't think there's one dud in this palette. I think they all look beautiful. I just kind of wish I had a little bit more play with the shimmer shades, maybe some toppers. Yeah, maybe I was expecting something a little bit more unique when it came to the metallic shades. The mattes are incredible. Love everything about them. So yeah, I think it's a great palette. If you like the color story, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Do you need it? If you have Biba, if you have the gold, if you have the bronze, like you definitely do not need it. But the quality is there. It's a good palette. As you guys might have noticed, I just don't wear a ton of eyeshadow. I tend to reach for just quads like these, you know, or trios. These YSL ones are just one of my favorite go-to eyeshadow palettes. And when I saw that this palette's coming out, I actually got very excited, and it did not disappoint. I think if you enjoy the colors, you are gonna like it. And I'm very happy that it's not very warm. I did not want orange eyes and none of that. I like the tones that she came out with. Those are my thoughts on the new palette. What do you guys think? Do you think it's kind of repetitive? Do you think we needed this or we didn't? I kind of feel like it was needed. We have gone from I Need a Nude, the Glam palette. Those are both quite cool tone palettes. So I really think that there was a need for this neutral warm palette for those of us that enjoy that. So I think it's a good addition and strong addition in the NATASHA DENONA palette. So that's it for now, guys. I will see you in my next video. Bye.